Good evening, everyone. The board will now convene to open session and report out items from closed session. Okay, regarding okay, so item number 3.1, recommended expulsion, Education Code Section 48900. May I have a motion and a second to accept staff's recommendation and expel students 1 and 2?
Yes, I'm aboard.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Moving on to the next item, approval of physical education PE waiver for James Logan High School student. May I have a motion and a second to approve the PE waiver for 1 James Logan High School student?
I move.
I'm a second.
Discussion?
None.
Roll call, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Moving on to 3.3, update on negotiations with NHUSD, bargaining units, conference with legal counsel, government code section 3549.1. There is nothing to report. All right, moving on to 3.4, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to paragraph 2 of subdivision D of section 54956.9. There is nothing to report. Moving on to the procedural items, let's go ahead and stand up for Pledge of Allegiance, please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Here.
Here.
Here. Thank you. May I have a motion and a second to approve tonight's agenda?
Move.
Second.
Discussion? Roll
None.
call, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Next up, we have a public hearing regarding the composition of potential trustee voting area associated with district's transition to a by-trustee area election system in advance of the preparation of draft trustee voting area plans. Let's see, I think we have a presentation.
Thank you. Good evening, Board of Trustees, Superintendent, Cabinet, community members. My name is Jonathan Salt. I'm an attorney helping the district transition from at-large to by-trustee area election systems. I'm joined by a member of the demographic firm of Cooperative Strategies who will be helping prepare those map options. A little bit of a brief overview as well. The reason we're here at the last board meeting in April, the board approved of a resolution to start the process of transitioning from at-large to by-trustee area elections. It's a 90-day required process that needs 5 public hearings in order to complete it to be safe from litigation. So what is the CVRA, or the California Voting Rights Act? It prohibits the use of at-large elections, which the district currently has, and at-large means no matter where you live in the district, you get to vote in every board election, and regardless of where the board members live, they can run. If that election system impairs the ability of protected classes from influencing the outcome of an election, that type of election system violates the CVRA. There's no intent required, so the district doesn't have to be intentionally violating the CVRA in order for it to be a violation. Not saying the district is or isn't violating, but it's very easy for a plaintiff to show that a school district or a city or a water district is violating the CVRA because proof of intent is not required. There we go. Another key issue with the CVRA is rights to attorneys and expert fees. So if someone were to challenge a city or a school district about their election system and prevail, the school district or city who tried to fight that change would owe the other side their attorney's fees and their expert fees. But if a district or a city were to defend itself and prevail, it would not be entitled to that same right. And we've seen numbers across the state where, first of all, no city or school district has ever successfully defended against an allegation of CVRA violations. And second, those who have fought it have spent millions and millions of dollars in their defense and still had to change. The only way to prevent a CVRA claim is to transition to a by-trustee area election system, which is where the district will be divided into 5 roughly equal population areas, and board members will run from each area that they live in and be voted on only by the registered voters in that area. It's important to note that all trustees have been lawfully elected, and so everybody serves out their term regardless of how the final maps end up being drawn. The reason this is popping up around the state and obviously more and more in the Bay Area is because of something called AB 350. It gave a plaintiff's fee reimbursement amount. So anyone who writes a letter to a city or school district saying, hey, you're violating the CVRA, if that city or school district transitions after receiving that letter, the author of the letter is entitled to up to $30,000 in reimbursement. AB 350 also set a 90-day timeline where you can be safe while you transition. So the current step and where we are now is the 2 required public hearings prior to maps ever being drawn. The community is here to give input about how maps should be drawn directly to the demographer. And so I'll hand it off to the demographer to talk a little bit more about that.
Well, thank you and good evening. As mentioned, my name is Corey Burback, and I'm here on behalf of Cooperative Strategies. And as mentioned, we'll be serving as the district's demographer, and we will be responsible for generating the maps that you all will be able to see later on in this process. It'll be our responsibility to make sure the maps coincide with the federal and state voting rights acts, as well as take the input received at these pre-map and post-map public hearings as far as the considerations go of the community and board. And when I think about these considerations, I like to think about them as a bunch of knobs that we're able to turn. And so a certain knob such as communities of interest, maybe a knob we want to dial all the way up till 10. Natural geographic boundaries may be a knob we don't consider as much. We may turn that down to 3. But one of the considerations that is a requirement and must be satisfied is that each trustee area or voting area must be within the same, reasonably the same number of size when it comes to the population. And so we use the 2010 census to make sure that all 5 trustee areas will be within a 10% variance of each other when it comes to the total population. That's the only consideration we must make sure we check that box. And so, unfortunately, that census is done in 2010, so you can imagine when the next 2020 census comes out, we may have to reconsider the total overall numbers. Another consideration that we will take input for on this process is, obviously, in the spirit of the CVRA, is looking at voters from protected classes and where they reside and how they may have a better opportunity to influence the election. And we do that by looking at a data set that's provided by the census called the Citizens Voting Age Population Estimates. And what that is that takes a 5-year rolling average of the citizens who are allowed to vote and identifies where they reside in the district. And so what we've done for you all tonight is put kind of a heat map together that shows where the higher density population of, in this case, the Asian population is within the district boundaries. And as you'll see, the district's Asian population, based off the CVAP, is at 48.6%. We also took a look at the Hispanic citizens voting age population estimate, as it is 20.09% of the district. And as you can see on the map, where the higher concentration of Hispanic Latino voters come from within the district. So the question that we'll ask here tonight is, we'll look for input, and that's the main goal of tonight, is look for input from the community and the board as to how these lines are drawn. We recognize, and I'm sure David will touch on this, that it's hard to kind of provide this input when you've never seen what a map could look like. So I think hopefully David will provide some, or Jonathan, sorry, will provide some input to how we help facilitate that process.
So the type of feedback being solicited tonight is essentially, I would like neighborhood X or neighborhood Y to be in the same trustee area. Or these are just samples I came up with, but I think the 880 makes sense as a boundary line because it just seems like it makes sense geographically. Or I think Alameda Creek Trail makes sense because it seems like a natural boundary. That's the kind of feedback we're seeking tonight before any map is ever drawn.
So as I mentioned earlier, we'll be responsible with drawing the trustee area plans. We're required to use the 2010 census data. I covered that the population must be as equal as possible. Again, that's based off people, not citizens. And again, you'll see on the next slide, it's a strict 10% deviation requirement. There are a few other criteria we must consider in this process. We must comply with the U.S. Constitution. We must achieve, again, the population equality as nearly as practicable. We must comply, again, with the Federal Voting Rights Act. The voting district shall be geographically contiguous, so we can't have one trustee area that covers a portion of the district in the west end, and that same trustee area cover a portion of the district on the east end. We want to consider local communities of interest. We want to see how geographical compactness works. And then we cannot favor nor discriminate against an incumbent political candidate or political party.
The final thoughts, this entire map transition or election transition process, it doesn't change the district's boundaries, it doesn't change school attendance areas, it doesn't even change how the district is governed. Each board member, however they're elected, owes a fiduciary duty to the entire district. It's still one district with common goals and challenges. The schedule is slightly inaccurate about the 26th, but there's another pre-map public hearing just like this one tonight on Tuesday, and then sometime in June, a schedule will be released of June and July board meetings where there'll be public hearings about the maps that are drawn by cooperative strategies. Those will be published on the website, sent out on social media, and your input is certainly sought and appreciated. And so with that, I'll hand it back for the public hearing portion, and we'll stand by if there's any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any speakers on this topic?
One speaker, Roland Valina.
Hi, I just wanted to put forward the fact that this is a good step forward in terms of making sure that every single citizen of Union City is, this is the one that I'm just saying, is represented equally. And because for too long, the other side of Union City, which is the more denser, more populated side, has overshadowed the voices of this side of the district. And switching to bi-trustee elections allows many of the people on this side of the district, including my grandmother, to be able to have their voices heard. Furthermore, as the city of Union City grows in population, the only open space left in Union City is on this side of the 880 bridge type thing. And so it's important that we take a step towards the future and make sure that the future population of Union City gets their voices heard as well. And by switching to bi-trustee elections, we will be able to do that. I applaud the district for approving this measure. Thank you.
Thank you. I see that we have a lot of people walking in. Can I ask you guys to please make your way in and clear the doorways? Please clear the doorways. Find a seat if you can. And also, can you try not to lean towards the light switches? Last time we had issues with people turning the lights off and on. So with no further speakers, I'm going to open it up. Does the board have any questions or comments on what was presented?
So
We have a meeting going on. Can we please ask you guys to make your way in? I'd like to remind everyone that this is a board's meeting conducted in public, so I ask you guys to please keep your voices down while we're on this discussion. Thank you. My apologies. Would you guys like to have any comments or questions for the presenters on
I
this
have
topic?
previously mentioned my comments, maybe if they can be addressed in the next public hearing, that the map on the industrial side the boundary needs to be adjusted in my opinion, so please make sure. And also if we can have the number of people in the census tract, that data, if
sure.
it can be included. So I also want to, because just somebody spoke here, one of our community members, that we need to ensure that these maps will be based on the present day population, and in case in the future, if there is any development on the east side, on the hills or whatever, so then maps, they need to be adjusted, and the maps will be adjusted after the 2020 or even future census, whenever there is a new development. So at this time, the boundaries of the maps will be based on the current population.
Correct. So
Yes.
the census was the last time that a count of every nose in the district was taken. And so the census data is used for the population purposes of equal population. After the next census, the board will be required to review the updated population
Yeah.
to ensure that whatever map is adopted maintains that 10% variance or equal population as close as possible. And at that time, if it's adjusted in some way, if 10,000 people move into one area, for example, between
Yeah.
2010 and now, the lines can be adjusted at that time. And in terms of your other questions, I think there may have been a sort of outer boundary issue. We'll make sure that it has the proper district boundary on the next map, and that each census block will also list how many people live in that census block.
So for the census data, census blocks, do we have interactive map or something? Will that be available later on maybe? So that we can play with it, to adjust the, I know we have to keep the tract together.
We can discuss working on some sort of a tool like
Yeah,
that.
whatever is
Yeah.
available next time. I think, that's it for today. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have one question. So good question on the census data. So for the 2022, or when the new census data is available, is that request something that the district puts in, or will you guys, as the consultant who worked on this, will be asking to update the districts?
We'll connect after the fact. Once the census comes out, I think the law currently requires that a school district make that change in a couple of month period of time. It's way less invasive than this 5 public hearing process. The way the law currently reads, it's 1 public hearing to adjust any boundaries to keep population equality.
Okay. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
I
Thank
think
you.
Thank
that
you.
is all we have. Lance, did you have any questions or comments? You may have to speak up a little louder, Lance. Can you guys please keep it down? I'm going to remind everyone again that this is a board's meeting conducted in public, so if you guys cannot conduct yourself, we will end this meeting. We will do if you guys continue. We will. All right. Lance, do you have any questions or comments on this topic?
Can't hear.
Jocelyn, can you hear anything he's saying?
Maybe he can save it for the next meeting.
Okay, Lance, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to cut you off. We really cannot hear you. If you can email your comments to Lori, she'll be sure to include those in the meeting minutes. She said yeah? Okay, thank you.